Brandon.
Hello.
Hey. So it's one guy talking, not two guys talking. We had a big kerfuffle with poor Bernard. I'm so embarrassed to say this, but he was standing outside my house for an hour and we didn't hear him knocking. And so he went home. So Bernard, if you're watching, I am so bloody sorry about that. I hope we can do this again. And wow, can't believe what a goof I am. Okay, so, hey.
Hey.
Who the heck are you?
I'm Brandon Wulff.
This is Brandon Wulff.
I'm an autistic person living with HIV.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you ready to start?
I'm ready to start.
Okay. We're just going to charge on to our Facebook Live, and hopefully people will join us along the way or maybe watch us at another time. So I've got a little spiel that I'm going to read. If you don't mind?
Don't mind.
You don't mind. Okay. So welcome to our live chat. My name is Karen Boyte, and I am a member of the Ontario Autism Coalition's Board of Directors. We are a non-partisan group who work to ensure that the Ontario provincial government provides appropriate support for children and individuals on the autism spectrum. This is Brandon Wulff, and unfortunately Bernard couldn't be with us. My fault. Want to say hi?
Hi.
Hi. It's cute, eh? Yeah. It's the hottest date I've had in a while, let me tell you. So I'll get to Brandon in a second. The Ontario Autism Coalition's role to date has been as watchdogs. So we're watchdogs surrounding the implementation of the OAP, which is the Ontario Autism Program. We also work on issues surrounding educational issues for school-aged children in the province of Ontario. And we're parents and some very generous self-advocates who are asking governments to do better. We've been hosting Facebook Lives in order to reach out to the community and help if we can, and quite frankly, to ask you to get involved. So today we're veering off course, and we're going to talk about living as autistic adults, or Brandon is, the good, the bad, and the ugly as Brandon sees things. And he's going to share a little bit about his youth and his childhood as well. So why am I talking to Brandon? Brandon doesn't know. The reason for this talk is that both Brandon and Bernard, who's not here, sorry Bernard, have reached out to me and others and have asked how they can help. And they've also asked, quite rightly, why are we not working on, why is the OAC not working on issues that affect adults, like post-secondary education, employment, housing, health issues, right? And we respond rather sheepishly, we don't have the capacity. We are just a ragtag group of people who are very good at protesting, and we're also very good at getting our point across. So today we'll talk about grown-ups.
Grown-ups.
And some of the things that we'll talk about will be adult topics. So
yes,
listener beware, right? What do they say on TV? Viewer discretion is advised?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, we're probably going to go there. So feel free to jump in anytime, guys, and we'll try our best to answer questions that people are posting live. Please note, as I said, some of the issues that we discuss may be adult in content, and some may be upsetting. Brandon is very generously offering to be candid, and I asked him not to hold back on any of his opinions. And I've also let him know that if a topic is too personal, then he should kick me, and he's going to kick me under the table, and I'll move on. Okay, so first question is from Sam. Perfect. Sam says, when you were a young child, what made the most impact to help with your development, language, and self-confidence? So that's a big question.
It's a big question.
What would you like to tackle? Confidence?
I think we'll do confidence.
Yeah.
My development was pretty normal, and I was undiagnosed. So For me, growing up, I was a latchkey kid, so I had a lot of freedoms. Confidence for me didn't really come until much later. Lots of experience, lots of hardships, which is why I like. I would never want to take any of this experience away from an autistic person, because I think it helps build confidence, and just being thrown out there into the wolves, I think really helps build confidence a lot. Having a good support network has helped, but I think one of the biggest things has helped me with my confidence is having a diagnosis. That not having a diagnosis, not being able to articulate our experience or why we're having that experience is really debilitating and can be really disabling.
Mm-hmm.
So just getting that diagnosis for me was really important.
Was there a person in your life that helped you feel like you were capable of doing lots of things? Was there a mentor in your life?
No. So when I became HIV positive, I decided that things had to change, because I was addicted to drugs, partying a lot, not understanding all of the social rules. Sometimes the gay community can be a little mean. Mm-hmm. And so I decided that I would go through intense therapy. So I did intense therapy, and then I became a life coach. And that process of becoming a life coach really helped me clarify a lot of the goals that I wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
And really gave me a good solid foundation on being able to draw the courage to be able to do those things.
So I guess you were the guy.
I was the guy.
You were the mentor.
I was the mentor in many ways.
I like
many
the sound
mentors.
of that.
I had many mentors, but
many.
Yeah, I would probably be the biggest mentor. Autodidactic, self-learning.
So I want to back up a little bit. Yeah. In school,
yes.
Did you have struggles in school? And can you tell me about one of them or a few of them?
So what was school like?
Yeah, what was school like? Yeah.
School for me, I transferred to school every 6 months. I was in and out of foster homes. So I transferred a total of 27 times in grade school and 13 different public schools. 27
different schools.
27 different transfers, 13 different schools.
Oh, okay. So back and forth.
From one school.
From foster care to home to one school and then back to another school in foster care. Yeah. Okay.
A lot of the teachers didn't know what to do with me, because the first half of the year I would do okay.
Yeah.
Not great. But the second half I would do okay. I would do really great, because quite often in those times the education wasn't consistent. So one school would teach a curriculum at the beginning of the year, and then the next school would go along and they teach the same curriculum. But in the second half of the year, it wasn't consistent throughout the year. So I would be learning subjects twice. Yeah. But really for me, my education was mostly on the weekends. It was at the library. That's where I learned most things in life. Yeah. And I didn't finish grade school. So not grade school, high school. Yeah. I got to grade 11, but I honestly think that my weekends at the library were far more valuable.
Your own research.
My own research, yeah.
And did you ever share what you were learning, or was that important to you in any way?
Well, I should probably tell what my interests are.
Yeah.
So my interests are around syndemics, which is the oppressive or contributing factors that lead to health outcomes. So the fact that I'm gay, the fact that I'm HIV positive, the fact that I'm autistic and diagnosed.
Okay, so when you were in high school, you were into that?
I was a lot into health, the systems that worked. I did a lot of, in that day, I was doing a lot of art. Yeah. I still do a lot of art. I quilt. Yes. They're beautiful. Brandon's quilts are beautiful. Yeah. So,
you do great.
So high school, grade school really for me would have been better served if it was, here's the subject, go and learn it. Okay. Self-directed learning. Yeah. I think probably would have helped me a lot better than here's the class, this is what we're taking. Yeah. This is too structured for me.
Did you get in trouble a lot?
I did, because I was bored. You were
bored. So when you got in trouble, what happened?
well, there was one time where I was like popping caps in the class because I was bored.
Yeah, that would be a reason to get in trouble.
Bang.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, childhood experience wasn't great for me. So, and I hated my French teacher. So one year I actually went into the library because she was also the librarian, and the bookshelves were stacked up like dominoes. And
Yeah.
I went to one end and just pushed one.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I got into trouble.
You got into trouble.
But I also found that you know, because of my learning, as I said, one of my interests is sex. I'm a sex educator at Actor.
Yeah.
For the autism and IDD community.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, grade 6, I remember my one sex ed class being the teacher asking me, "What are genes?" And I said, I put my hand up and I said, exactly what genes were. It took me 15 minutes, exactly how they're used, where they come from, what they make. And the teacher ran off crying because I knew more than she did. She was not quite able to handle.
She didn't quite know what to do with
a
you.
6-year-old that knew more about sex than she did.
We'll get to the sex stuff.
Grade 6.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to the sex stuff and the sex education stuff. So you flourished working independently.
Yeah.
What about friends?
I didn't have any friends.
Yeah.
And I would say that friends were something more my parents and the adults wanted for me more than I wanted.
So it didn't feel like it was missing?
It was lonely, but
yeah.
No, I don't think it was really missing. I think there were always people around me.
Right.
And I look at life that way. There's always people around me. I can be friendly or talk to almost anybody. I don't have those limitations of needing to have a deep, intimate relationship in order to have a great conversation with somebody.
Yeah. Did you just feel like you had better things to do?
Yeah. I got life to live.
So you had stuff to do. Yeah. And the fact that you weren't a social butterfly wasn't a big deal for you?
No. I think in the teen years, it was pretty lonely, especially being a gay male and seeing all of the socializing that was going on in the community and somewhat being left out because I didn't understand the social norms. I didn't understand the the nuance.
And certainly that would not have been a topic in school at all.
It was not.
No way. Not when you and I were. No, we're about the same age. Yeah. No, that would not have been a topic. Yeah, we were just talking. It was just about how to not get pregnant, really.
Pretty much.
Although, you know, and so I don't recall anything about. No, it was all pretty much heterosexual and mechanical, you know, kinds of topics, you know. So the word autism, did that mean anything to you growing up?
So the word autism had been mentioned a few times. I had been diagnosed with nonverbal learning disability.
Now, do you recall, have people report it? Like when you were little, were you not speaking until you were older? Okay.
Yeah, I had full capacity.
Okay.
I had no delays at all.
Yeah.
I was a poop smearer. I was a great artist.
A great artist?
A great artist.
Yeah, okay. How good is your memory?
A pretty good memory.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
So when did that stop, if you don't mind my asking?
I didn't do it for long.
And let me ask you, like, what did you get out of doing that?
Art.
It
was totally art.
It was visual. It was beautiful.
Yeah. It was a medium to play with. That's all.
That's it. It was readily available.
Yeah. And
warm. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Texture.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's some parents going. Yeah. You know.
Take photos for later.
You never know.
You never know.
What masterpiece was created.
Exactly.
You'll never know. Yeah. Georgina asks,
yes.
What's the now it's hard to answer questions about the greatest thing, you know? So whatever comes to mind that you think is relevant, what's the greatest thing you learned growing up A, and B, in your advocacy work. Brandon is a very impressive advocate, and we'll get to that too. But the greatest thing you learned, that's a big question.
The greatest thing I learned growing up was probably to trust the process. My life was so crazy, going from here to there to here, that I think I probably really learned that. Learned about living in the here and the now, and trusting that things are going to be okay. Knowing that you can make changes for the future, but you have to work hard at them. But yeah, I think that trusting the process is probably what I learned from my childhood.
Can people hear us okay? Because you know, I've got a big, loud voice, and Brandon is more soft-spoken. Yeah. Can we get an amen that you can hear Brandon all right? If you don't mind, folks. So as an advocate, we'll just push forward a little bit. You've done a lot of different things as an advocate. Is there a big lesson that you learned?
Just keep doing it.
Keep doing it.
Yeah, it's not going to be solved overnight. So you just keep doing it, and lots of patience. I don't have any patience. I have lots of persistence, which is an autistic trait. So just be persistent, and you'll get there. You get there. You'll eventually get there.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah,
I am learning that lesson very slowly.
Yes.
Very slowly.
It's a painful lesson to learn.
It's a painful, it really is. Yeah. You know, and maybe we constantly relearn it.
Yeah.
Because we want what we want when we want it.
Yes.
And we don't always get what we want, right? Laura asks, I can't think of a generalized question. I would love to hear of the two's experience, the fellas, with school and home life and feeling like an outsider. You talked a little bit about not really worrying about that so much, but maybe your parents did.
My parents did.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I have yet to see my son actually be rejected socially, but I dread it, and I want to get rid of that. I'm working, Brandon. I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
We talked a little bit about this earlier, but I kind of live my life, but with the philosophy of who would I be to take away that autistic experience from somebody?
Yeah.
No matter how hard it is, there's a lesson for that person needs to learn from having those differences that only those differences can teach.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I've had some really crazy experiences, and I'm HIV positive, and now I'm all of a sudden autistic, but I wouldn't take any of those experiences away. I think that they've made me a really strong person, and that life has a lot to unfold to us.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't be who I am without having that.
Yeah.
So who would I be to take that experience away?
You know, one of the things that I worry about is that I don't want my son to define himself by a label or a disability. I want him to know that this is part of who he is, you know, and I do worry because it's my life's work now to make sure he's going to be okay.
Yeah.
You know, and
he's going to be okay.
Oh, Brandon.
He may not be happy, but he's going to be okay.
But you know, I guess we all have labels.
Yeah.
You know, and we all have things that we carry with us.
Yep.
You know, I am ...
Yep.
You know, I know for myself, it has more to do with the relationships that I'm in. So I am that person's daughter. I'm that person's mother. I'm that person's, and it's not I am a disability, you know, or I don't. It just doesn't enter my imagination. Like, is that something that you do?
It doesn't enter my imagination either.
Yeah.
I am.
You are.
So I think that's another big thing I got. You know, one of my nicknames is B, as in BE. And that's something that my whole childhood, my whole youth, through my addiction, that I really craved to learn how to do was just be.
Yeah.
And being for me was also part of my advocacy work is about being. It's the freedom to be.
Yeah.
The freedom to be autistic if I need to be autistic.
Yeah.
The freedom to blend in if I need to blend in. I just want to be able to be. And so in some ways, having the label opened me up, gave me some freedom.
Right.
To be. And have that being okay.
Yeah.
You know, because in the past I'd have a meltdown and everyone would tell me that's not okay.
Yeah.
And then that's not me being. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because they're telling me don't be that way.
Shape up.
Yes, don't be that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so no, I'm saying, but I want to be able to be that way. So for me, yeah. Labels, although I use them.
Yeah.
They help me explain the differences so that I can get accommodations.
Yeah. So when you say I need an accommodation,
yeah,
and you're at work,
yeah.
So maybe I should just back up a little bit.
Yes.
So you've shared that you're HIV positive.
Yes.
You shared that you had difficulty with drugs.
Yes.
And that you didn't need a ton of people in your life.
No.
Just maybe good, close
friends,
confidants,
yeah.
You know. How'd you get HIV?
Well, partying, obviously, was part of it.
Yeah.
The fact that I have severe sensory issues to condoms made condom use almost impossible.
So condoms were just
icky,
revolting,
disgusting.
And
it's the combination, for me, it's a combination of wet.
Remember I said adult content. Yeah. We're talking about adult things.
Wet plastic really bothers me. So,
okay.
So the combination of the lube and the condom actually are what bothers me. But it's different for a lot of autistic people.
Right. So it's just, right?
Two-thirds of us have this issue.
Okay.
With sensory issues to condoms.
Now, did you know at the time when you were sexually active how dangerous that was?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so you knew it was dangerous, but condoms were revolting.
It's not a possibility.
It's just not a possibility.
And so I one of my first jobs was working at the AIDS committee in London.
Yeah.
And so I was very well educated in what was high risk, what wasn't.
Yeah.
But what ultimately led me to becoming HIV positive was a communication breakdown. So I had asked the person for disclosure, are you HIV positive? And their response, being HIV positive uncomfortably, was don't worry about it. Okay.
So you said to your partner,
yeah.
Okay, are you safe? Yeah. Are you HIV positive? He said, don't worry about it.
And my logical mind says, I don't have to worry about it.
Right.
But what he was trying to say is, I'm not comfortable talking about this.
Right. So you couldn't read.
I couldn't read that.
Or whether he was lying and just wanted to get going, you know, or whether, he himself was uncomfortable, you know, and for whatever reason, he put you in an unsafe situation that you have to deal with for the rest of your life.
Pills every day.
Every day. Yeah. So you're very taking healthy. A cocktail and you're okay, right?
I'm very healthy.
You're okay?
Very healthy.
Okay, good. Yeah. Good. Yeah. We want to keep you around there,
If you're
honey.
on pills and you're undetectable, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Just keep that undetectable.
Yeah. So would that be a common issue when you were dating and you were, in terms of reading the signals? I mean, I'm a heterosexual lady, right? So our dating rituals are a totally different thing.
Yeah.
You know? So you're a guy on the spectrum. You misread what one partner said. Does this happen, you think, to a lot of kids?
Oh, yes. For example, I can't tell you how many times I've been walking down the street with a friend and they're saying, oh my God, that really hot guy that just passed you was flirting with you. And I'm like, flirting? What do you mean flirting?
What? Yeah.
I mean, looking around who?
Yeah.
And sure enough, the guy's like looking at you when you look around. But I totally miss that.
You miss it.
I can, unless you're really obvious or really overt, I will totally miss that you're flirting with me.
Yeah.
And that can lead to a lot of problems, like a lot of problems that people can be taken advantage of because of that.
Or pursue someone who doesn't want to be pursued.
Pursue someone that doesn't want to be pursued.
You know, which is very tricky.
Yes.
A very tricky thing. So you got you got the virus.
Yes.
How was it being treated? What's it like going to the doctor for you?
At the beginning, it was really easy because they want to get you into a routine of taking your pills every day and doing your blood work on a regular basis.
Right.
But now that things have changed, now that medication is really, really working, and there's a new statement from the HIV community about being undetectable. If you're undetectable, you're untransmittable.
Okay.
And so because of that, now the same medications that are used to treat me also are used to prevent people from becoming HIV positive. So you can take a pill once a day and it will prevent HIV from taking hold. So it's called PrEP. So a lot of doctors that are were serving HIV clients are now serving the non-HIV clients in getting this PrEP. Yeah. But quite often, what happens is the medical system, the education, the programs and services, and employment are institutionalized. Mm-hmm. And by institutionalization, I mean the mentality that autistic people with learning disabilities and mental health disabilities belong in institutions. And so in the 80s, we deinstitutionalized our system. Yep. We got rid of the big hospitals, but the idea was that not-for-profits and programs and services would take over the slack. But they still have this mentality of you belong in an institution. So that creates a big obstacle for us. Yeah. And it's quite often experienced by parents in the education system, you know, when a parent gets a little bit loud or excited about what's going on and the teacher says, I'm uncomfortable. And then as soon as someone says I'm uncomfortable because of health and safety laws in Canada, you know, there's the chance of that person being banned. Yeah, excluded is the term that is used often. Yeah. So we call that institutionalization, and so I would experience a little bit of that, especially after I got diagnosed from my doctor. Yeah. He's like, well, I'm an HIV doc, and I'm like, but I want to talk about GI issues, and he's like, well, I don't know anything about autism, and I'm like, well, no autism doctor's going to know anything about HIV, so we got to come to a compromise. So you found that people didn't treat you, or didn't want to treat you? They didn't know how to. Didn't know how to. Because it was out of the scope of their understanding. So so there's some crossover, like GI issues are common in autism. And a GI issue is? Gastrointestinal issues are common in both HIV and autism. So I was wanting to sort out which was the source, and what was the fix. And he wasn't interested in doing that. He's only interested in doing the HIV work. And so another obstacle in the HIV community is that the doctors themselves call themselves HIV primary care physicians. Mm-hmm. And so in my research that I was doing at ACT, and we should mention that, Brandon, you work for an organization called ACT. Yes, the AIDS Committee of Toronto. AIDS Committee. So we are talking a little bit about HIV, but there's a reason for it. Yes. We're getting to that. Research. Yeah. So these HIV primary care physicians, most autistic people assume that they're providing primary care. Okay. And the reality is they don't provide any primary care at all. Okay. So they're only relying on this one doctor to provide all of their care, and the doctors weren't making it clear enough that that's not what they do. Right. So there's been gaps in the services, especially around language about that the doctors refer to themselves as. And another piece is the doctors don't like it when you Dr. Google. They get really egotistical about you self-diagnosing. But for me, I don't feel very much in my torso. So when I feel something, I have to look it up on Google so I have a script to be able to articulate that to the doctor. So even now as an adult, is it safe to say that there's parts of your body that you don't feel connected to? Yeah. You had said to me at dinner or before dinner that you're in pain a lot. Well, I have fibromyalgia, and living with HIV can be painful. I have rheumatoid arthritis. Yeah. So there's lots of pain, and I just I've always had that. I've always had arthritis and fibromyalgia. Even as a child, you lived in pain and discomfort a lot. So you worked for ACT. Yes. But you didn't finish high school. I didn't finish high school.
You didn't finish high school. You didn't go to college.
I didn't go to
Didn't
college.
go to university, and you've been on your own since you were
16
years old.
Yeah.
Did any of that have to do anything with your autism? You
totally
think?
did.
So how?
Well, I left home as a choice at 16, partly because I'm gay, partly because I was in and out of foster care, so I kind of lived on my own anyways.
Yeah.
In many aspects. Sorry, reflection.
Well, just that you've been on your own since you were 16
years
old, which is quite a feat.
It was hard. It was really hard, especially in my youth, in my 20s.
And where did you go when you were 16? Where did you live?
I worked at a restaurant as a busboy.
Right.
And I quit school, and I lived with some roommates that were
at 16.
At 16.
At 16. What kinds of work? So you started as a busboy.
Busboy. I was a coffee barista before it was even come to be a
thing.
Yeah, before Starbucks was even a thing.
Yeah.
I was a wine steward at a Silent Silver Businessmen's Club, so it was the service was completely silent.
Nice.
Yeah, so
no chit chat.
No chit chat.
Because I was just going to ask you. I'm like, here you are in the service job.
Yeah.
How was that? But you didn't have to talk to anybody.
To them.
Oh,
perfect.
How did they order?
Through a chit. I had a menu and a pad was given to them, and they would put their number at the top of the pad.
Did they talk to each other, or
Yeah,
was it just? Oh, but
yeah.
You were not.
The staff was not allowed to talk. I wore white gloves. Wasn't allowed to touch anything. Yeah. It was fun. It was very fancy.
Wow. Upstairs, downstairs.
Yes.
Oh.
I owned a bar in Victoria.
You owned a bar.
Yeah.
How old were you when you owned a bar?
18.
And you hired people.
We hired people.
How did that go?
My partner took care of that part.
Okay.
So I did a little bit behind the bar and some schmoozing, but
yeah.
Mostly I knew everybody. So.
And you didn't know you were autistic at that time.
I didn't know I was autistic, so I was masking a lot.
And masking? What is masking?
Hiding the fact that you're not capable of doing things the same way as other people.
Okay.
So you're hiding that, and so I hid a lot of that through drugs and alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah. And acting.
Pretending that
I
am normal.
Interesting.
Convincing myself mostly.
I'm assuming, because you mentioned a few things to me before we started, that you did have meltdowns through life. So what's the sensation for you like when that happens? Are you able to describe it?
A loss of skills.
A loss of skills.
A slow progression of skills disappearing. So for me, I've been thinking a lot about meltdowns, especially in the work that I'm doing at ACT.
Yeah.
And I believe that meltdowns are trauma-induced.
Okay.
They're trauma reactions, and then what makes it a meltdown is that the skills start to disappear once we're in that trauma mode.
Yeah.
So for me, it really feels like a trauma response, a triggering that goes well beyond or goes into that losing the skills.
And what skills disappear?
Communication.
Communication.
Yeah.
So you can't speak any longer, or you?
I can't. Will go mute.
Yeah.
I will bolt. I'm a big bolter.
Okay.
Sometimes I come back.
Okay.
And then I scream.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
I try not to come back.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
A lot of my meltdowns now, I find, are really enlightening.
Oh.
So I'm really introspective. So I find that when I go into a meltdown, I always come out with a message at the end.
Yeah.
A lesson that I've learned, something that was on my mind, or the situation provoked or triggered.
Yeah.
And I go in at the end of it. I come out. I have a lesson of some sort.
Can you tell me about one? Does one come to mind? An epiphany? It's okay if you can't think of one.
Oh, I can think of some, but can I say them? So there was one act where I was wanting to present at a recurring event, and this advisory committee had said that they felt that not enough people would be interested in the subject.
Okay. I hope people are hearing you, because you're getting quieter. But
I'll speak up a little
I know.
bit.
I'm sorry. I am making you work very hard, Brandon. I'm sorry.
So so they had this, they felt that nobody would want to participate. So I had a meltdown, and I came out of it, and I felt this is gatekeeping. And so that was a big revelation for me, is that I'm not upset about the fact that they felt that way, but this is a form of oppression, a form of gatekeeping, a form of what happens to autistic people. That you're speaking on behalf of me,
right?
And the autism community at that, and the HIV community, implying that maybe the HIV community doesn't want to hear about it, but we don't know. We've never introduced this topic, so
right.
It turns out I was right. That people
did want to hear that topic. Yeah, so, and that's frustrating. So walls put in front of you, and rather than perhaps trying to convince them, or you've used every skill,
that I have to,
or knowing that you have to convince
so
them.
Part of the epiphany is that knowing I have to convince them that this is oppression, and
that's hard work.
That's
really hard work. Yeah, of course. Just knowing, I can see that in my own child.
Yeah,
I can see that where there will be something he'll want, and I know he wants it, and then I want him to say it.
Yeah,
you know, even though I know what he wants. And then it's right. You know, it all blows up in my face. Right.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. It's very interesting. So I don't want to drag you through the meltdown mud.
No.
But you also, Brandon told me a really interesting story of being at a conference.
Yes.
And among peers that he very much wanted to relate to.
Yeah.
And some shit went down.
Yeah. So I had a big meltdown due to being separated from the group, and the facilitator decided to give me the "look at me" comment, which always sets me off. If I'm
she's
asked,
like, "Look at me."
Yeah. I know,
okay.
No.
Yeah. And why would an adult do that?
Power control.
Power and control.
Power and control. And she was the grief counselor too.
She was the grief counselor.
Yeah, she was giving me grief.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, wonderful. Okay.
So yeah, that ended up disastrous, and I got quite shunned from the community. And so when I got diagnosed with autism, that really kind of pushed me into the realization that if I'm autistic and HIV positive and undiagnosed as autistic, there has to be a lot of
folks out there
that are autistic and HIV positive and don't know it.
Were the people afraid of you then after this happened?
Oh yes. Yeah,
okay.
I got a letter that banned me.
That banned you from this group.
From this group.
Yeah. That's really hard.
Yeah. But
Brandon, that's really hard. It happens a lot to you?
In the autism community?
Yeah.
Yeah, for autistic people, yeah.
Right.
That Bill 168 versus human rights is a big piece, and parents experience that. You know, parents will experience the the teacher getting saying I feel uncomfortable, and it seems as though they win the battle immediately because their health and safety is at risk. But that's not the truth. The truth is that our Canadian Constitution actually gives me my human rights as a disabled person, which actually outweighs any law in this land. Yeah. So health and safety lands are actually underneath my human rights. Yeah. And the reality of what is supposed to happen is, in the heat of the moment, the teacher is supposed to be trauma informed or aware of the fact that there's something going on, and they have a duty to inquire. Yeah. And they have a duty to accommodate. Yeah. So in the heat of that moment, they have the responsibility to say, are you disabled, or do you think that you might have a disability? Yeah. And if you say yes, then they have to give you the opportunity to accommodate you through a letter or a temporary accommodation. Yeah. Know that if they say no, they can do punitive, but they actually, if they say I don't know, they actually have a responsibility to help us get diagnosed, including paying for the diagnosis. When you told me that story a couple of hours ago, I had a neurotypical reaction, and I asked you, I said, oh, did you inform them before that you were on the spectrum, that you're an autistic man, and that you may have some difficulty at some point? And then you said to me, no, I didn't know I was autistic. Oh, but I'm talking about that at the conference.
You know, so I had, my reaction was, oh, well, you know, if they didn't know.
Yeah, they didn't know.
Right.
Yeah.
But, and then you explained to me
so
that you didn't have to.
I don't have to disclose my disability.
So what do people do?
So
like in the heat of the moment,
in the heat of the moment,
right?
Is there a disability that needs to be accommodated? And
Yeah.
if there is a yes, then the let's say it's an organization, they have a responsibility to say, I need a letter of accommodation.
Yeah.
And that's all they can ask for. They
Yeah.
can't tell you to disclose what your disability is.
Yeah.
But they have a right to know what those accommodation needs are.
Yeah.
And that can be a conversation between you and them, or that's ongoing.
Yeah.
Or it can be a letter from your doctor.
Yeah.
But you do not have to disclose. And they have a duty to accommodate if they're in a situation where they reasonably ought to know. Yeah. That this person could possibly have a disability.
Yeah.
So in the HIV community, there is disorders called HIV neurocognitive impairments. Because that exists within the HIV community, they should know, or ought to reasonably know, that there are mental or intellectual and developmental differences in the HIV community. So they should be automatically accommodating. And same within in schools, they should automatically be accommodating someone. If there's a crisis, it shouldn't be about the teacher. It should always be about the individual. Yeah.
Well, it's very much at the core of what so many parents are dealing with, Brandon, that the neurotypical world just doesn't seem to know what to do.
They don't.
And I still don't.
No.
Right? You know, when my kid has a meltdown, fortunately for me, I can wait it out and things will sort themselves out. You know, but I don't even know how to ask you. You know, because it's not a good question, but it's such an imperfect world. I guess I should push on because I still think like an NT, a neurotypical person. You know, I just don't want it to happen.
Yeah, but it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
And we have to learn how to do these things.
Yeah.
So, and we can't learn how to do these things without
experience. And you have to live your life, and you have to make a living, and you have a career, and you have colleagues, and you're a super likable guy. Yeah. You know,
unless I melt down.
You know, well, yeah. I mean, I have meltdowns too. You know, but they don't scare people. Yeah. You know, and we so often don't want to go there, right? Yeah. And I'm not talking about violence. Yeah. Right? You know, I'm talking about just, you know, wah! And when a grown-up loses their shit, you know, we don't know what to do about that. Like the guy talking to himself down the street, you know, we just go, whoa, right? And out you go. Rather than deal with it, and rather than go like, okay, Brandon's had a moment. Yeah. And it's okay. Yeah. You all right now? You want some water? Exactly. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Yeah.
See, and those are asking accommodation questions.
Yeah.
It's that simple. Do you need some water? Do you need a quiet space?
Yeah.
What do you need? How can I help you? Do you need to leave this meeting? Do you need to come back to this meeting later? What do you need?
When is the time, if you are having a meltdown, when is the time to talk to you?
For me, you can ask me what I need right in the heat of the moment.
In the heat of the moment.
Traditionally, I would take care of myself. Like if I'm having a meltdown and I don't want people to see it, I'll run away. I'll bolt. That's why I'm a bolter.
That's why you run, because you'll.
I don't want people to see it.
You don't want people to see it. Yeah. I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
I don't want to see it. I want you to be happy and comfortable here.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see if there's any questions. Nobody's asking questions, but there's a few people watching. And listening. Hello, those of you. I had well, I don't know if they were good questions for Bernard, but I had some questions for Bernard. Housing issues.
Yes. Housing is an issue. So
housing is an issue.
Let's talk a little bit about my work. So at ACT, I am the ASD and HIV Prevention Needs Assessment Coordinator. It's probably the longest title at work.
Yeah.
And I assess the HIV prevention needs, and we determined that there are 4 areas that are in need of a lot of work. So the medical system, the housing system, the employment system, and programs and services.
Do you deal hands-on with adults on the spectrum who are HIV positive in your work?
Yes, okay. I do. Yeah.
And what about youth?
So I have only run into a couple of youth.
Yeah.
Youth, I also have helped a lot of youth at ACT diagnose, self-diagnose.
Right.
So this community in the HIV community and youth, 50% of the HIV positive youth are living with ADHD. So quite often people are getting an ADHD diagnosis and not getting an autism diagnosis. So ADHD in the HIV community is hiding this disability. So autism in the HIV community, we are estimating, and it's only an estimation, that it's about 18% of the HIV community.
Okay.
And
it's
pretty significant.
That's a significant number.
And the way we determined that is we asked HIV positive people if they were living with any of these learning disabilities or intellectual disabilities, and then we asked autistic people if they were living with HIV, and that 18% was around the same number. Yeah. And then for IDDs, we estimate approximately 40% of the HIV community is living with something intellectual or developmental.
Maybe you can mention some of the studies that you've done, and later on I can post a. Can I post a link that you sent? Yeah. So
the ASD and HIV prevention study was the first one I've done. After I got diagnosed with autism, I realized that
high school dropout.
Yeah, there had to be a lot of people out there that are autistic and HIV positive that don't know that they're autistic.
Yeah.
And so I did a lot of advocacy work and advocated to ACT, and Ryan, my boss, and I, we did a grant proposal to the City of Toronto. We won the proposal and conducted that needs assessment. We learned a lot, especially around the institutionalization. There's a lot of abuse going on in the autism community, from housing to, so you asked me a little bit about housing. So one of the interesting situations around housing is, what do we do with intellectually or developmentally disabled people who have committed sex crimes, especially after incarceration?
Okay, so somebody's been in prison.
Yeah. And where do we put them?
And they may have an intellectual disability. They may have some other kind of developmental delay.
Yeah.
They've been in prison.
What do we do with them?
What do we do with these people?
So the DSO, or the Developmental Service Ontario.
Not the same as direct service option. Yeah. Different DSO.
Developmental Service Ontario or Community Living Toronto. They actually prefer to house them back in the group homes. Now, the problem, or the interesting thing about housing them back in the group homes, is these folks are not receiving sex education. They're not receiving abuse training, so they don't know what abuse looks like.
So the young residents in group homes are not getting sex ed.
They're not getting abuse training, so they don't know what abuse looks like.
And essentially sex offenders are going back to live with the kids.
Yeah.
Do you have any sense? I know this is not your expertise, but I guess you can't answer this question. I don't know if you know how many people on the spectrum are living in group homes. We know there are group homes for kids on the spectrum.
There's a lot.
Yeah. Well, it is like we really don't know.
We don't know
how many people in the province, in the country, are.
Especially with the private group homes, and then the government group homes.
Yeah, we don't know, but we can use our imagination.
So the group homes are also interesting because a lot of the Christian ones won't allow condoms in. The staff, there's such a high turnover that they also are not receiving abuse training and sex education to help these kids learn sex education.
Yeah.
So both the staff and the clients are completely sex ed unaware, and abuse training unaware because of that high turnover.
Yeah.
So we really want to put that online. We want that to be available for both autistic people to learn from, but also the people who are supporting autistic people to learn some tools and tricks on how to recognize abuse and how to recognize that someone is sexually active and may be at risk.
Yeah. Well, clearly your passion. This is your passion.
It is
right?
my passion. Yeah.
Sex education. Brendan has contacted me a number of times about the OAC getting involved with some of ACT's projects, and we're looking at it. You know, we're talking amongst ourselves in the executive about Brendan's proposals. Dating. So you talked a little bit about.
I'm married.
Well, I meant back in the day.
In the day.
Back in the day, and
it was fun.
It was fun. Good for you.
It was challenging.
It was fun. Well,
no, I'm being sarcastic when I say it was
fun.
fun.
It was fun. Oh, okay.
Oh yeah,
So,
a lot of head games. I think.
But it's like when we think about sex education, is it like it is the mechanics of sex, and so
it's the relationship.
What you point out is the relationships.
Yeah, it's that nuance. It's the what does he mean by don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And how do you navigate consent when people aren't being straight up front with you or using nuance?
And then the confusion. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Be confused. We are about the same age. It was easier to come out when we were teens, but not that easy, you know.
I think it's easier now.
Yeah, that's what I'm alluding to, right?
Sure.
So you have like the social rules of coming out and where is it safe to come out, and then how do you read that?
Mm-hmm. I hung out at the bar.
And you hung out at the bar.
I hung out at the bar.
You know,
from 16
not the way to figure stuff out.
The gay bar. Well, it was because I had a family there.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, they adopted me.
They adopted you, of course. You're gorgeous. Of course they adopted you. Of course they did.
They trained me. They trained me good. I was raised by some drag queens.
Yeah. Did you find support?
Oh yeah.
Sensitivity and fellas that would.
Relationships didn't really
maybe
work
some
out.
Altruistic people that would help you.
I had some friends that would support me, and there's a really big crossover between the non-binary and trans community.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they're deeply connected, but there is a correlation of some sort.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't be surprised if the people that took me under their wing were also autistic.
Yeah.
Especially you know, some of the older drag queens.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised at all if you know, I naturally found these people.
If you come across people, I wonder if because it's dating sucks. It's really hard, right?
It's hard. It's nuanced.
It's nuanced that there are some people who be like, no, I'm out. You know, I am nothing. You know, and maybe that's protection rather than not actually wanting, you know, but then maybe it is because you just told me about, well, I didn't really want friends, right? So then if you're trying to support your child and you think, okay, do they want contact and connection?
Yes.
Because most of us neurotypicals
want connection.
You know, like the body wants what it wants.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You know,
we have those too.
Yeah. But or do you?
Yes, we do.
Right? But then do you?
Yes.
You know, because you've also said, no, was happy being alone. I'm Linus. I'm gonna play.
I always had an eye on having a relationship, but I knew that I had to practice, and I always looked at my youth as practice.
As practice.
And I say to a lot of the younger autistic people, life doesn't really begin for us until we're 40.
Yeah.
Really.
When did you marry? How old were you?
Only 4 years ago.
Only 4 years ago.
Yeah, and we've been together for 15 years.
15 years.
Yeah.
Lovely. Congrats.
Yes, thank you.
Lovely. So you're married.
Yeah.
All is well, you know. You've only been married for 4 years.
Yeah. But together for 15. So we've gone through it.
Okay. Okay. Ed, let me see. I don't see any questions. You folks are very welcome. I see 5 people are watching. We're gonna stop at about the hour mark, unless there's more things you want to talk about. You're very welcome to post your questions, and I'm hoping if I tag Brandon, he may respond,
I will respond
later.
Yeah, for sure.
And Bernard, if you're watching, please join in the conversation. And if you want to follow up later. Okay, so let me just ask, we talked about health, we talked about school. So I've asked this of other people, and oh, maybe there's a question happening here. Apologies. This is not TV, so it's not slick. I'm sorry. Am I? That's the chat. I don't see. I don't see a question. I hope that. Okay. I've asked this of Laura and Elsbeth when they were here a year ago down here in my basement about. They're both very articulate people. You're a really articulate guy. You can explain what's happening with you very, very well. Why the heck can't you stop it? If you understand your autism, for lack of a better way of putting it, then why can't you stop feeling the way you feel or reacting the way you react?
Because I want to be. I don't want to become. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense.
Like, I don't want to become what other people want me to be. I want to be who I am.
Yeah.
So even though I can articulate my experience, I don't want that person to have an uncomfortable experience because I'm being.
Yeah.
Which is usually what happens, right? And then I have an uncomfortable experience back because they punish
But I
me.
don't feel uncomfortable with you at all. I feel as comfortable. You're just a guy to me, right? Okay.
But when there's the behavior.
But you,
or the attitude that I throw. The meltdown happens.
The meltdown happens.
The confusion about the social situation.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that's a big piece of it, is that people are not understanding that I'm confused about what they're perceiving. So they don't know to ask more questions.
Yes.
And really, that's what the human rights wants. That's all they want. They want you to ask.
Yeah.
Just ask the person what they need.
Ask
the person what would make them comfortable.
Yeah.
And say to yourself also, what do you need?
Right.
Because you're a neurotypical person needing to accommodate someone. What do you need to in that process as well? So don't exclude yourself from that process.
So is there anything that I've said to you that has confused you?
No. You're pretty straightforward. You have an autistic kid.
Yeah.
You're practiced.
And practiced. Well, certainly you learn that you may as well tell the truth.
Yes.
And that's my philosophy anyway.
Yeah.
It's just how I roll. I'm just that groovy, right? But sometimes when I was talking to Elspeth and Laura and you now, I do wonder, like, I am waiting for my child to mature and understand what's happening to him, for example, and then it's all going to go away, because if we all understand, then it's all going to go away. I am now learning something else.
It doesn't go away.
So, like, for example, he is a fantastic speech therapist.
Yes.
Right? And so we created something called the memory book, sort of journaling, right? And taking pictures from his life and getting him to help talk about it. And I always bring in pictures of amazing things that we've done. Mm-hmm. And inevitably, he falls apart. Yeah. And usually it's like, it was so great, he didn't want it to end or something like that. So what I think is going to be an easy thing to talk about is freaking devastating. And I feel like I'm dragging him through a major psychological trauma.
It's because there's no script.
Yeah.
For things that just randomly happen to us, there's no script. So, and this is part of what I think the narrow focus is about, is that it's a tool for us to speak through we speak through our narrow focus. Yeah. I have a guy in my advisory group, and we're talking about HIV, we're talking about gay culture, but absolutely everything is a musical reference. Everything. Barbara Streisand, Liza Minnelli, the whole 9 yards comes out.
Quoting songs?
Absolutely. Everything comes out as Barbara did this, or Liza did that, or, so Bette Midler did that. Or
right. And that's how he relates.
And that's how he relates. So it doesn't matter what we could be talking about science, but it's a Barbara reference will come out. Barbara did this. Yeah. And I'm in many ways doing that too. I'm always talking from the perspective of oppression or my HIV advocacy work. Yeah. But we talk through our special interest. And those are scripts that we're rehearsing.
Is it kind of like, I remember studying French in school, but my family's Hungarian. Yeah. And so in French class, I would think the English word, then the Hungarian word. Yes. And then the French word.
Yeah, we have to translate. So for me, when I heard the story about your son, why would he
understood instantly.
Why would he have to explain anything at all if he's got a picture in his hand? Yeah. That's my and that was my autistic perspective is, who cares? Why do I need words if I got a picture?
That's right. you were there.
Pictures are better than words.
Yeah.
So.
And you were there, Mom.
Yeah.
And it's funny because that's the conclusion I came to. And what we did, we're like, okay, we're not going to do this project anymore. Thinking, hey, here's something to relate. Yeah. It's sort of like, I don't know, you're wearing a Spider-Man t-shirt and I'll be like, hey, Spider-Man, Spider-man's my favorite. Well, bully for you. Yeah. Right? Bully for you, lady. Right? So So much to think about. And this is, you see, this is why we start to go crazy.
Yeah.
You know, we moms.
Yeah.
We start to go absolutely crazy, Brandon. Now, I don't see any more questions coming up. Paul, but I see Laura messaged me, but I'm terrified of leaving this page and looking at messages. So maybe we'll have to look at them later. It's been an hour, but maybe just a couple more.
Yeah, sure.
Or so you're grown up now.
Yes.
Do you feel freer?
Can
you be the guy you want to be?
No.
No, you can't be the guy you want to be.
I can at home, for sure.
Okay.
At work, I have to put the mask on still.
Okay.
Even though I'm really, really accommodated at work. I'm really fortunate to have any accommodation I could possibly want. If I don't want to attend a meeting, I don't attend a meeting. If I want to stay home, I stay home.
Yeah.
But there's still a mask that goes on. That,
yeah.
You know, my partner and I have a language that we kind of speak to each other where I could come in and just say the word poop.
Yeah.
And he knows instantly what that means. You know.
Safe word.
Well, no, it's the way I'm saying it.
That was inappropriate.
Just the way I'm saying it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It could mean hello. It could mean where are you?
Okay.
Or it could mean I'm had a bad day.
So you weren't able to come up with the word, and you used that.
Or we just kind of developed this code.
Yeah, between couples.
Yeah.
That people develop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I say poop 100 times a day.
Yeah, me
it's
too.
It's a stim word.
It's a stim word.
There's another P word that I won't mention.
No, it's okay. I can take it. I can take it.
I stim that word too. But I say that word all the time, and we've just developed over time a code for what those mean when I say it a certain way.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'd like that kind of freeness.
Yeah.
That's freedom to me, that people understand me and my code and my individual.
Yeah.
And I couldn't let that show at work. Even with my close boss. I'm really close with my boss.
You're close with your boss, and you've got colleagues that you trust and like, and so it worked out.
It worked out.
You found a work environment where you thrive.
Yes.
I'm not saying it's easy.
No.
I'm not saying it's easy.
But I have a lot of accommodations. I don't have to be at work, which is great.
Yeah. How's this for jumping around? How'd you meet your husband?
Oh, I was working as a hairstylist for 20 years.
As a hairstylist?
I did hair.
Yeah.
A great stim, running your fingers through hair.
Yes. Yeah. Another satisfying job, I guess.
Very
20 years of that. Yeah.
Not completely satisfying. There was purpose was missing for me. I found it very purposeless. No meaning.
No meaning.
It was like putting a Band-Aid on people's problems.
So maybe making somebody feel good about themselves was a Band-Aid. It wasn't deep enough or meaningful enough.
Yeah, it wasn't meaningful enough.
Yeah.
And I think that is really important for autistic people, that what we do has meaning. And purpose and intention.
Beauty is as superficial as it gets. Yeah. You know? It is. It's a quick pick-me-up.
It totally
and
is.
For some people, it's the be-all and end-all. Yeah. But yeah, most of us.
I always ended my haircuts. Do you feel better?
Do you feel better?
Do you feel better? I always did.
Oh,
I was kind of making fun of them at the same time. Do you feel better?
It's kind of sweet, though.
Yeah.
Oh. So you met John. You were cutting his hair?
He came in as a client, and when he left, the whole salon kind of stopped what they were doing and said, "What was that energy going on?" And he came back a couple of weeks later to look for me. I had moved on, but we found each other. So.
You found each other.
Yeah.
So there was some kind of
but there was connection.
Kismet, chemistry, just like anybody else.
Everybody else.
So you found love.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I really love that. It's very encouraging. Okay. Anything else?
No.
No?
No, I'm good.
It was pretty good. It's good for me.
It was good for me.
It was good for you?
It was great for me.
I don't know if there were any questions, but please feel free to post them, and I will tag Brandon and I will tag Bernard. I'm really sorry that he couldn't join us. Again, it was my fault completely. The poor guy was standing outside our house, and we didn't hear him. Bernard, we'll call you. Oh dear. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Like,
Thank you for
this
having
was
me.
hard work.
Yeah.
I know. And I think a lot of people will really appreciate it. At the OAC, we're trying to figure out how to work together with all kinds of folks. And we know that we're a huge community, and we have to do better somehow.
Yeah.
We're making attempts. We are reaching out. We've created something called the Autism Dialogue Project, and Laura Vanos is now managing that for us, and we hope that people will check it out and participate in the conversations. We have noticed that on our Facebook page over the years, there have been a lot of fights.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those fights are between autistic self-advocates and parents. And I cringe when I see them. I would like people to know that before you post, consider who might be communicating with you. Not everyone writes clearly,
mm-hmm.
right? Not everyone can communicate exactly as they wish to.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of misunderstandings that happen. And I happen to know the parties involved, and they get pretty ugly, and they don't have to be. We are a very diverse community. Mm-hmm. And Brandon is someone we've kind of reached out to each other, and we're becoming friends, I hope. Mm-hmm. You know, and he's just one of the amazing people in the OAC, and I really hope my son can be as cool as you are when he grows up. It's really a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Truly, like,
Thank you for
what a smart guy. So thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Stay safe. Good night, Bernard. Okay. And